this podcast, Bill Schmarzo from DellEMC talks about the ingredients of a successful data science practice. So, stay tuned. So, welcome everyone to another fascinating episode of Future of Data podcast. And today we have an amazing guest. And if future of data is a thing, our guest pretty much justifies the future of data. So, he's Bill Schmarzo. He's a CTO for big data practice, where he is responsible for working with organizations to help them identify where and how to start their big data journey. He has written several white papers and is an avid blogger and is a frequent speaker on the use of big data and data science to power organizations' key business initiatives. He is a University of San Francisco School of Management fellow, where he teaches the Big Data MBA course. Bill has over 3 decades of experience in data warehousing, BI, and analytics. Bill authored EMC's Vision Workshop methodology that links an organizational strategy business initiative with their supporting data and analytic requirements, and co-authored with Ralph Kimball a series of articles on analytics applications. Bill has served on the Data Warehousing Institute's faculty as the head of analytic application curriculum. Bill holds a master's degree in business administration from University of Iowa and a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics and computer science and business administration from Coe College. And he is an amazing Twitter follower to get in touch with. So always sharing some interesting insights. So if we'll be posting his Twitter handle as well. So with that, Bill, thank you so much for jumping in and requesting my query to be on the show and sharing your insights with our audience.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm always eager to see the kinds of questions that come up, because I view this as a chance for me not only to talk, but also to learn about what other folks think are relevant topics.
No, I think it's fascinating. So we have invited interesting guests from basically the industry verticals, where they are on the receiving end of these capabilities, right? And to me, you are from the one who is actually providing these services or providing the knowledge and know-how to all those businesses. So I think I'm super excited and pumped for the session. So why don't, as a start, you walk us through your journey to big data?
How I got here?
Yes.
I mean, how far back do you want me to go? I mean,
go all the way.
I think that probably the most material thing is I really got. I was very fortunate in the 1980s. I worked for a company called Metaphor Computers, and was working. We were supporting Procter and Gamble, and they were doing work at that time with Walmart, pulling in their point of sale scanner data, and we were selling with Metaphor what was called a decision support system. So we were helping them to bring that data in and analyze it and make decisions regarding promotions and inventory and pricing and all kinds of different things. And that ended up being sort of the launching pad for the whole BI data warehouse, industry. I was lucky. I like to tell folks it was a Forrest Gump moment, right place, right time, not right. Because I'm tall or good looking or from Iowa. Sometimes in life you just get lucky. And so I was very fortunate with that project. It really launched me down the whole BI data warehouse space. They ended up being vice president of analytic applications at Business Objects. And then I was recruited about 14, 15 years ago by Yahoo. I was recruited out of Business Objects because Yahoo had a problem that they wanted to help their advertisers optimize their spend across the Yahoo ad network. And the project we were building, we actually called the project internally Project Looking Glass, Alice in Wonderland. The reason why is that we really wanted to reshape the experience that our media planners and buyers and campaign managers had with using data and analytics. And so what was interesting about this journey that we were going to take them on is that the person who actually went through the looking glass was me, because everything I had learned and held as gospel from my data warehouse and BI days, I had to, in some cases, just unlearn it, throw it away. And this world of big data, petabytes of data, I didn't have 7 or 8 dimensions. I had 70 or 80 dimensions. I didn't have, 15, 20 metrics. I had thousands of metrics. I had all this data, semi-structured and structured and unstructured. And fortunately at the time, which I had nothing to do with, by the way, they were developing this technology called Hadoop. Now, I didn't develop it, but my team was using that in order to uncover these insights. And so that really launched me on sort of my second career, where I started to see the light with respect to how data and analytics could be used for more than just reporting, but how data and analytics could be really used for predict what's likely to happen, take prescriptive actions, and become much more preventative in identifying stressful situations, for example. So that was kind of my journey.
Interesting. We'll resume after a short break. This part of the podcast is brought to you by First Friday Fair, fastest AI-powered way to find your next opportunity. Check out the website firstfridayfair.tao.ai and find your next dream job. Let's get back to the podcast. Interesting, and thank you so much for walking us through that. So, tell us about your current role. Like, what do you do in your current role?
Yeah, so at DellEMC, I'm the CTO of our big data consulting practice, which, as you pointed out, means I'm a practitioner. Mm-hmm. I not only do I talk to my customers and explain kind of our approach, but I get involved. I like to say I have the single best job in the industry, because it allows me every day to work with customers to really understand the kinds of problems they're wrestling with, their cultural and environmental situations, and how do we help them become successful at leveraging data and analytics to really power the business. So I'm very much involved with our customers, everything from early stage education awareness all the way through initial implementation, all the way through operationalization. So I get a chance to see it all. And it's not all good, as you would know, right? There's a lot of mistakes that everybody's making. The journey is fraught with all kinds of overhyped, misset expectations. And so a lot of the challenges that I see is that how do we get organizations to reset their expectations and to get really refocused on what's important?
Interesting. No, I think thank you so much for walking us through that. I think one thing that when I was looking at your profile, I find very exciting. So we had a bunch of folks from the consulting background, doing the management consulting side, and the excitement of getting those folks into the conversation was they know the strategic problem or at least the cultural, the thinking, the mindset of business folks in understanding the tech. And when I looked at your profile, so you represent the tech side of that conversation, right? Of how these business anxiety about what's happening in data science and what are some of your insights on what are you seeing some of the challenges that businesses are facing today when it comes to adoption of data science and understanding what the hell this keyword really means for them?
So I think the biggest problem is really misset expectations. And that what I mean by that is there is this sort of naive belief that if I just hire a bunch of data scientists and I start employing, machine learning, if I'm going to bring in TensorFlow or Caffe or whatever I bring in, right, that it's magically going to find stuff for me, right? There's this sense of it's all magic, so I don't need to really worry about it. And what we're seeing, that the organizations that are most successful are really those organizations that have a real laser focus on what is it we're trying to accomplish. Oh, we got a problem. Let's say you're a hospital and you're trying to improve or reduce hospital readmissions, for example. Okay, there is all kinds of data out there, all kinds of analytics out there that really can help you to, score a patient's likelihood to get it to be readmitted, to understand the variables that are driving that. I mean, we can get really laser focused to predict those customers who are likely to be readmitted so that we can take very prescriptive action. So the real key thing is you got to be focused. And I'll tell you right now, I think most organizations do two things really poorly. They don't like to focus and they don't like to prioritize. And the reason why is culture or politics, right? You can't pick one organization and let them, we're going to focus on, maybe the customer experience organization and make sure that when the customer comes in, we understand their needs, et cetera, et cetera. And then if you focus on that, the people in procurement are saying, well, what about me? And supply chain, what about me? And finance, what about me? And so what happens is instead of taking a laser-like focus, being successful and garnering little insights and knowledge that you can use elsewhere, they peanut butter the resources across all these areas and end up doing nothing well.
Interesting. Wow. So, and what are some of the things that you are, say, pleasantly surprised by looking at these companies that they are doing really well, if at all, when it comes to adoption? Like what's your thinking? We'll resume after a short break. This part of the podcast is brought to you by First Friday Fair, fastest AI-powered way to find your next opportunity. Check out the website firstfridayfair.tao.ai and find your next dream job. Let's get back to the podcast.
So here's the thing that really surprised me is that size of company is not an indicator of ultimate success.
Interesting.
You can be a big, in fact, I think small companies have an inherent advantage here. We're seeing the democratization of the technology, right? Costs are being driven down. All the open source capabilities out there doesn't mean you have to go out and buy an expensive, machine learning framework. They're all out there, right? So there's this democratization of the underlying technology. And with the technology, the cost of technology is no longer a barrier to entry. What happens is that culture becomes the enabler. And in many small organizations, you'll see that the business and IT people actually like each other, right? Where you see in a lot of big organizations, the IT and business people don't like each other. In fact, one of the first questions I ask an organization when I walk in, I say, "You have Salesforce.com?" Of course, most everybody says yes. And then I say, "Who bought it? Who bought it?" Right?
Interesting.
If IT bought it to serve sales, we're good. If sales bought it because IT wasn't getting their butts in gear, that's bad. So you ask that simple question, and that tells you almost all you need to know about the relationship between the business and the IT organization.
I think so. You're touching a very interesting point. So we are seeing a lot about these use cases where IT is too slow to respond, and then businesses ended up creating this shadow ITs or shadow groups, and IT created shadow businesses. So it's just getting like, in some ways you can see it's almost like appifying workforce right now. So every use case dictates its own CEO to all the way back to its own line manager. What do you think as a technologist, or as a technologist coming from data science side, how is it changing the way we do business and in data science?
So I think what happens is a couple of things that happen when you have this disconnect between the business and IT. So, and I think we're going to see this really big in IoT, in that we're going to see the business stakeholders, they're going to go out and buy point IoT solutions. An IoT solution that solves this problem, an IoT solution that solves this problem, right? And what happens is they don't integrate well, they don't scale well, and the operationalization of that becomes a nightmare because the business bought it without IT being involved. And at some point in time, business is going to flip this over the transom and says, "Okay, IT, you guys operationalize this thing." Well, we've got to re-architect the architecture. We got to integrate them together. It creates this nightmare. So what happens is that while there is a compelling ROI for the business to go out and do it on their own, whether it's IoT or some other aspect of, big data or, whatever it might be, ultimately IT has to be involved because they own the operationalization. They're the ones who are going to make sure the data gets fed in consistently. They're ultimately probably the ones who are going to do all the data governance and metadata management. They're the ones that are going to ensure that the data can be shared properly with all the right security. And so when you have this disconnect, the business will get what I like to call, they're going to get Krispy Kreme donut sugar highs, right? They're going to do one thing. It's like, wow, this is great. But they're never going to realize the operational benefit. They're going to get a one-time, 2 or 3% hit, and they're going to miss the opportunity to get that 2 or 3% hit every year, right? Because they didn't have a chance to operationalize it. So when I talk to organizations, I typically come in through the IT organization.
Right.
And I tell the IT organization is, you got to focus. Find somebody in the business, find a friendly who has a really compelling business problem, make them a hero. Help them be successful. Focus there. Use that to build out your architecture, your capabilities, your technologies, your analytics, your data science team. But while you're doing that, you're also delivering an ROI and you're building credibility. And once you knock that one down, go to the second one. I mean, Jeffrey Moore talked about it moons ago, right? You're crossing the chasm, pick one thing, nail it, right? Then get the next bowling pin, right? It's not magic, but it requires a discipline. It requires a discipline that says we're going to do things one at a time, and that's probably where the organizations most fail. It's not in the technology. I mean, anybody can make TensorFlow work. Well, most everybody, right? It's not the technology that gets in the way. It's the management, alignment, and culture that gets in the way.
Interesting. And is there any way to gauge if you're doing it right? So I think almost like it's comically sort of existing now that when you talk to all these businesses, they say, hey, I have my own IT freaking organization, and then they have a central IT and they're not talking to each other, and then they create sort of their discrete silos, and then it causes all the integrational havoc for most of these businesses. Like, is there any sort of relief or any sort of strategic mindset that these guys need to understand to say if it's a right or a wrong strategy to have, say, a distributed IT when it's so-called shadow IT? Do you have any perspective on that?
So, yeah. So here's the one conversation that I've had growing frequency over the last 6 to 8 months, and it's a lot of it has to do with the research project we did last year at the University of San Francisco on how to determine the economic value of data. And one of the things that came out of that research project, which I think for most people isn't a surprise because we knew this, but now we had a chance to actually, sort of quantify it, is that data is an asset that's unlike any other asset an organization has. If you think about data as an asset, data has some characteristics, right? Never wears out, never depletes, and the same data, if you store it properly at the lowest level of granularity, the same data can be used across an infinite number of use cases at zero marginal cost, right? So when you start talking to the business executive and start saying, think about your balance sheet, think about what assets you have nothing like this. And by the way, data is not the new oil. Data is the new sun, right? It never wears out. And so all of a sudden you start getting organizations that start thinking about data as an asset. Now the CXO, CEO, CFO, COO, they're all of a sudden going, well, wait a second. You're right? We can reuse this over and over again. However, that means I can't have marketing build their own data lake or data warehouse. I can't have finance build their own. I can't have sales build their own, because if I do that, I can't get that sharing. I don't get that multiplier effect. And so when I start to have this conversation, you literally could almost see the light bulbs go off and executives and go, oh, wow, you're right. Right. It's an asset. So all of a sudden the mind shift has started to change in our organizations because, and to a certain extent, maybe we blame me. We blame the people who did data warehousing because at a certain point, data warehouses were so expensive that customers thought about data as a cost to be minimized. The modern organizations, the Amazons, the Googles, the Netflix, the Ubers of the world, right? They don't look at data as a cost to be minimized. They look at data as an asset to be exploited. And so when you start having that attitude, all of a sudden you've got senior executives. You've gone through the mental metamorphosis now, where the executives start to understand that the value of the data and the resultant analytics is something that can be used across the organization. That you create a customer loyalty score, for example. How loyal is that customer? How likely are they to recommend? How likely? What's your net promoter score? All these kind of things. I can use that score across an almost countless number of use cases. Now you got something that's very unique. And the companies in the future who are going to win are the ones who are going to figure out how to exploit that digital asset and drive it across all their business and operational processes.
Interesting. I think that's
you can see I'm excited about this.
Right. Exactly. No, it's
a great conversation.
Yes, I think, and thank you so much. I think it's really useful. We'll resume after a short break. This part of the podcast is brought to you by First Friday Fair, fastest AI-powered way to find your next opportunity. Check out the website firstfridayfair.tao.ai and find your next dream job. Let's get back to the podcast. So, one more interesting conversation that I find myself into in many times is over-analysis. Like, how much of analysis, like, is there any upper band to analyzing data? Like, am I over-analyzing? I think most of these guys, how much of it is gut and how much of it is really data. So do you think there's a bar anywhere?
So it's a really good question, and it's a challenge. So when people come from a data warehouse BI mentality, we know the results are accurate, right? If the numbers aren't, my financials are not right, somebody is wearing orange and going to jail, right? Yeah. So we grew up in a mentality where data was something that we had 100% trust in. My sales were this, my profits were that.
Right.
When you go into a world of predictions, nothing's 100%. And so there's an acknowledgement that I'm no longer 100% confident. I'm now playing with probabilities and confidence levels, which, by the way, most executives, if they took a stats class, threw that book away the minute that class was over, right? They haven't gone back to stats. And so there's a really resurgence of the fact that you need to understand probabilities at some extent. You need to be able to figure out, what's good enough. The one thing that's really key from a data science perspective, at least what I'm seeing, is that you need to have a data science environment when you're building a model that allows you to fail enough times. Here's why failure is important. If you don't have enough failures, I don't have confidence in the model, right? Model is 80% accurate. Well, it's 20% inaccurate. What's the cost of being accurate? By the way, what's the cost of false positives and false negatives? What are type 1 and type 2 error costs, right? So is 80% good enough? Do I need to have 92? Do I need to have 94? What do I need to have? So there's this sense of it's really squishy. There's no absolute number that says, oh, if you can't get 95.6% accuracy, you shouldn't act on it. Well, it depends on the cost, right? Type 1 and type 2 costs come into a really important thing, and most executives look at me like I had lobsters crawling my ears and I start talking about type 1 and type 2 costs. They're like, whoa, what's a type 1 cost? Well, I've never heard of that, right? So there is this realization, it's this education that you need to go through with the executives to help them first understand that you're going to do predictions, and predictions by their very nature are never 100%. There's confidence levels, and the best way to build confidence in the model and the results of the model is to have an environment that allows you to test all kinds of different things, fail, learn, and get closer and closer. And oh, by the way, the minute you think it's done, the world's going to change. So I like to call this the full-time data scientist lifetime employment act, right? Because you're going to have to constantly keep the models tweaked, right? The economy changes, the student debt increases, underemployed increases, right? We see different things change, and so models by their very nature are going to change as well. So you have to have this mentality that I have to be able to work with good enough. I have to be comfortable operating within confidence levels.
Interesting. I think when you were saying that, so one thing that I was thinking about is, I think recently you said that who brought in the sales force? Are the sales guys is bringing the sales force, or the IT guys? This is another interesting topic, right? So in data science, right? So who should sort of own the idea of data science? Like, should this come from IT? Or does the business case dictates? Do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah. So I actually think that the data science team should be owned by your chief data officer.
Interesting.
And that's a new role. And actually, I don't like calling a title chief data officer. I think your title should be chief data monetization officer, because your job, right? I've got a CIO who's already managing my data, right? Buying the storage and compute and everything else like that, right? Got that. I need an executive who is focused on data monetization. I don't need a CDO who's a CIO mini-me. I don't need that, right? And so if I have a chief data officer, I could make a very strong argument that my data monetization engine is my data science team, because they're the ones who are extracting value out of the data. So if I own monetization, I'm the chief data monetization officer. I want to own the data scientists, but organization, here's what I would do. I would hardline them into the business units and dotted line them back to me, because I want the business units to think that they work for them. And in fact, I want the data science to work for them, right? But I need to be the point in the middle, the cog, the CPU in the middle, that's ensuring that the learnings we're getting out of all the different business units are being integrated together. And so we're learning them and applying them across the organization. Yes, applying data consistently across the organization, knocking down data silos, stopping shadow IT spend. But I also want to avoid the problem of orphaned analytics. That is where somebody in some part of the organization builds an analytics model. It's got a great impact and doesn't get operationalized across the other units. That's like throwing money on the floor and just walking away. Why would you do that, right? So I think the chief data monetization officer is the real linchpin here. And I've talked to 2 organizations now who got it. And in fact, in one organization, the chief data officer reports to the CEO and the CIO reports to them. I thought, wow, that's pretty unique, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it was very unique, and kudos to that organization, because they're very serious about their digital transformation. When you make that kind of an organizational statement, you're basically telling the entire company, data is a key aspect of the organization, and we're going to figure out how to get value out of it. I love it.
Interesting. So that means you're suggesting that CDO or chief analytics officer, like whatever we call this guy, should have its own vertical. So, or do they do they come from any business unit? Like, what's your personal preference? Where these guys should come from?
So I think the background for a chief data officer should be economics, not technology. I think And the reason why I think economics is really applicable, because economics is about how do you put value on abstract assets, right? So, and data very much is. And also economics talks about, wealth creation and wealth transfer. And there's all kinds of economic concepts, like the real value of data, if you think about it, is really the economic multiplier effect, right? And what's the marginal propensity to consume, and all these economic things. So if you think the executives forgot their stats, when do you start talking about economics? And they certainly forgot those. But I think economics is the best characteristic. You should know enough about technology to be literate. I think that's what I am. I mean, don't ask me to write TensorFlow. It'd be a really long day, right? But I've got a really solid understanding of economics, and I understand how the economics of data can be applied to the business to drive value.
Interesting. So I think one thing that so you're a technologist in the data science world and helping businesses understand what they can do with their data science. So one of the things that we hear a lot from the business end on their technologist. So I personally I'm paranoid about this idea of bias as a technologist, right? Now businesses or IT is now the spine of any business core competency, and business is all about the art of doing things, right? So it's an art that business has created for a while, and now IT is given kind of a front row seat in driving that business. Now as a technologist, like bias is, and in IT bias is it's the thing, right? So we all are coming from our own cults of how to execute, and if that's the right word. So how do one keep yourself cult free or unbiased when it comes to your thoughts?
Yeah, so you're right. We all come with biases because we are all a product of our prior experiences, right? I worked with Ralph Kimball for many years, so when my first way, whenever I start talking to a customer, in my head, I was immediately building a star schema. Oh, here's a fact, it's a dimension, etc. Right? That was how I thought. I think what's happening now, I like this phrase, you said business has been given the front row, right? In some cases, business is standing at the front of the ship saying, we're going this way. And it's a new role for IT, because we're no longer just playing with technology. We now have to be accountable for understanding what technologies are going to be important to achieve what that business exactly wants to hit. It's no longer a technology-driven conversation. It's a business-driven conversation. And here's where I think IT, the people in IT, and this is where I think the millennials have a huge advantage over us old dogs, because you're going to have to unlearn. Here's the challenge. When I went from the BI world at Business Objects to Yahoo, it took me a long time to unlearn schema first, right? You think, when you get to a Hadoop world, you don't need to have schema, right? You can do a schema after the fact, load data, then build a schema, right? My mentality was, I was trained for 20 some years of my life to think schema first, and to unlearn that was painful for me. We are all faced with that, especially as technology basically starts addressing more and more things, and some of the beliefs that we've held as gospel, things that we have built our careers upon, have changed. And if we can't unlearn so we can learn new stuff, we're going to fall by the wayside. So I would say that for any IT organization, the key is to be ready to let go of things that you've held as gospel. And I'll tell you right now, the one thing to let go first of is technology, right? Let it go, right? In the end of the day, no one cares, right? Technology has no legs, has no life. What does have life is data. Data is going to be around for a long time. And the analytics that come out of that data, right? The sooner that organizations, this will probably give people really heartburn, but the sooner you can think about technology being disposable, it's better off you're going to be, because it isn't the technology, it's the data that's coming from that. I like to joke that I've been involved with some clients where they've got data that's come out of a CICS system. People probably don't know what a CICS system is, right? The CICS system dead, 15 years ago. Data's still there. Data is still there.
Interesting. Wow. So how what are some of your hacks that you use to keep yourself bias free? Like what are some of the things that you could do, any practice?
So the one thing that I find that helps me to frame everything else, because I'm not sure I'm ever going to be bias free, But the one thing I found is, and this is what every good data scientist already knows, it's the how confident and solid, how well defined your hypothesis is. What is it you're trying to prove? And more, that hypothesis is a decision I'm trying to drive. For example, if I'm trying to reduce customer attrition, I'm going to create a score for every one of my customers, an at-risk score, right? I'm going to create an at-risk score. And I need to be able to focus on the decisions that I'm going to drive based on that at-risk score, right? So I'm going to use that at-risk score to figure out what customers should I target. I'm probably going to build some analytics around what kind of offers are the best ones to go after. I might build analytics around what's the right kind of channel they might respond to. Some might prefer email, some might prefer their mobile phone, right? It depends, right? But, oh, wait, I may have to create a score ahead of time about how valuable that customer is. Because if I have a customer who's at risk but not very valuable, why do I care? Right? So what helps me to stay grounded are the decisions we're trying to make. If I understand the decisions, and by the way, this is not hard to figure out the decisions because our business stakeholders have been trying to make these decisions for decades, right? Who are my at-risk customers? Who are my most valuable customers? What's the right message to deliver to them? What's the right time? They've been asking these questions forever. Well, I now have better data and much better analytics and technology to help me to make better recommendations on the decision. So the way that I can help become maybe less biased is let's focus on the decisions. Let's figure out what data and analytics I need to support that, what technology and architecture supports that, and attack it from the top down based on decisions and my hypotheses versus trying to grasp some technology and say, God, I hope this solves the problem.
Right. Interesting. And how about so in a good enough execution of data science or that practice, how much is the role of a team versus a tool? How much of do you have any perspective on that? Like how important are tool versus team when putting together a good enough data driven practice?
Well, we know from athletics, for example, that the team is much more important than the tool. Right? That ultimately, everybody has the same tool, but the reason why the New England Patriots keep winning the stinking the Super Bowl is because they've got a better team. They use the same tools as everybody else, but they've got a better team. They've got better organization. So the team is everything. And when we start to build out teams, there's obviously a series of different roles that need to be created in that. So collaboration is very critical, right? I'm going to have a data scientist. I'm also going to have a data engineer who's going to help me get data. I'm going to have a data visualization person who's going to help me to visualize data. I'm going to have a user-centric design, human-centric design person who's going to figure out how I'm going to materialize those. All kinds of different people involved in there. So collaboration is very critical. But you can't have good collaboration if you also don't have humility. Right? If you're not a humble person, if you think you know all the answers, you don't. I'll tell you right now, if you think you know all the answers, you don't. The minute you think that, you're done. And so the best teams are the ones who are always willing to listen and learn and collaborate and try different things and fail as a group and move forward, right? That humility is very important because you have to have an attitude that says all ideas are worthy of consideration. You don't know where your best ideas are going to come from. There was this story I just read about in the Golden State Warriors' first championship against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They were really struggling their first 4 games, and one of their video guys came up to the coaching staff and said, "Hey, when you have these combinations of players in there, one of them was Iguodala, right? And you have him in there, he causes a matchup problem for the Cleveland Cavaliers." And so Steve Kerr said, wow, looked at the data, looked at the analysis, said, let's try this. And so they actually started Iguodala, starting on game 5. They went on to win the championship, right? Because all ideas are worthy of consideration. You don't know where the best ideas are going to come from. There's no law that says the best ideas only come from the senior executives. Heck, they're probably the most clueless. So this humility, being humble, all ideas are worthy of consideration, collaboration. That's what builds a good team. Screw the tools, right? It's not the tools that make it work. It's the team and the ability to collaborate.
Interesting. I think so. I was reading, I think one of your blog. It was pretty interesting. So you were talking about, I think, value cycle when it comes to preventive, and so fascinating. Like, so I really want to sort of know some kind of maturity model out there, right? Some kind of value cycle, and it was refreshing to see anyone who's talking about it, right? So is there anything like a maturity model when it comes to data science? Like, is there anything that you have seen or exist, or what, like, any thoughts there?
So time for a shameless plug. One of the challenges that really ran into probably 5-6 years ago was that organizations lack that maturity model. I would ask them this question. I always started my conversation said, "Hey, how effective is your organization at leveraging data and analytics to power the business?" And they all look at each other in the room and they go, "Well, we don't know, right? We don't know how to compare ourselves. We might be doing great, we might be doing crappy. We don't know, right?" So what I did is I created this thing called the Big Data Business Model Maturity Index. Big Data Business Model Maturity Index. It's not a maturity model of how good are you with Hadoop or Cafe or SAS or SQL. No. It's how good are you from a business model perspective in exploiting the power of data and analytics. And so if you do a search, I've written several blogs on it. I've done some videos on it. It's a very effective, and again, I wrote this probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it has survived the test of time. I had a lot of customers. We've gone through this. We put it up on a whiteboard and we figure out where they are and how they move along. It's probably the single most best thing I've ever done. Right? I don't have a lot of things in my life that are really great, but that one really seems to work. And so use that as a vehicle for figuring out how do I become more effective at leveraging data and analytics, and then figuring out how the technologies and stuff kind of fit into it. But it gives you a different frame. It gives you a frame that says, we're going to focus on driving the business. We're going to focus on business value. We're going to focus on data monetization. And then we'll figure out what data, what analytics, what architecture, what technology we're going to need to support that journey.
Interesting. And I think that's, and I'll put that link on the description of the podcast as well.
Do.
That's fascinating, because I think we hear this a lot from our end as well, that many of the businesses, so this, and whether it's procrastination or whatever we call that thing, it's just that, hey, I have a maturity model that I'm pursuing, and IT and data science maturity model should align with my sort of growth trajectory, right?
Give me 1 second. So I'm back. Thanks for this. I'm trying to get it so you can see it. This is it, right? And this is my hand-drawn version because I like doing hand-drawn. I like to draw on the board. But this is
pretty cool.
This is cover of my second book, which is actually the textbook. And again, it's not a shameless plug, but this is the textbook we use for my class at the University of San Francisco. And we spend our very first session, which was last week,
that is awesome,
walking through this. So that because it's really important that the business stakeholders. So my students are tomorrow's business leaders, right? They're not data scientists, right? I'm not trying to turn them into data scientists. I'm trying to turn them into citizens of data science. And I want them to understand and think about, how am I going to exploit the economic value of data and analytics to move along the maturity index?
No, I think that's,
sorry to interrupt, but
I think that is fabulous. I think so. Even whenever I find myself in that conversations where no, this maturity model is like, let's follow whatever my business goal is, and you align yourself in my goal. The constant struggle is, hey, but how would then you see your practice grow? Like, at some point you want a data science to do some business, deliver some business insights on itself, unless you take it. And I think that's why I do appreciate you sort of for creating those maturity model and pushing it out there, because and I think, and the other thing that I really sort of envy you about is, so you are from a very data savvy company, right? So you are always on the cutting edge. You are always on the front seat when it comes to the evolution. But many of the businesses that sort of, which are pretty like 100-200-year-old businesses, very cultural thick, very difficult to move anything in those businesses. They have no insights. Like they have, and we hear, and you must be hearing that a lot, that their IT or technology leadership cannot get anything through the thick layer of culture. And what are some of your thoughts or some of your sort of key insights for those executives, how they can sort of the leaders on the IT and tech end to push this next shiny object in their companies?
So this is probably not the answer that you want to hear. I've given up on many of the executives. And the reason why I really like teaching, I guess lecture a lot of universities, is because I think my generation has reached the point of marginal value. I think that what is, I'm more encouraged by the millennials and the up and coming business leaders, people who have a fresher perspective, who aren't worried about protecting their domain. Every now and then I run into a business executive who gets it. It's few and far between. But when you hit one of those kind of people, it's really enlightening because they know that there's more that they can do. But there's still too many executives and a lot of CIOs who have, and again, I'm probably getting myself in trouble. I'm going to plead to the millennials, who I think is our hope. I think there's a lot of CIOs who rose to power based on some technology decision they made.
Right.
And by golly, they're not going to give that up, even though that technology is no longer the best thing. I mean, there are a lot of CIOs who became CIOs because of their really outstanding data warehouse capabilities, right? They made some really smart selection in the data warehouse and BI space, and they built a really compelling environment that reports on what happened, and people are getting reports, people are happy. But their ability to say that I need to move beyond reporting to predictive and prescriptive limits their ability, because they can't go through a looking glass like I went through. Right? I went through the looking glass. It took me a long time. I had a lot of really good counselors and people with me, some really strong data scientists, and a really excellent user design team who worked with me at Yahoo. They are the ones who dragged me through the looking glass. They were not going to allow me to let my preconceived notions of how things are supposed to work get in the way of the success of the project. So I teach because I think there's a message for tomorrow's leaders that you need to embrace analytics as a business discipline. It's not something that IT should own. It's a business should own analytics. And I think we're going to find more and more organizations that are going to become under stress. They're going to have to back up and say, I need to think differently. And when they start thinking differently, now we can help them.
Interesting. I think that's fascinating. I think it's a very good insight there, by the way. So, as a technologist, like another challenge that I want your perspective on is, so right now every technology that you're using for empowering businesses is going through disruption, right? So every day you hear about every day there's a keyword emerging, whether it's called blockchain, whether it's called IoT, whether it's called AI, whether it's called whatever, every day there's something. How do you keep yourself sane besides going to yoga or going to do some meditation? Like, how do you sort of, because like right now, everything that you're standing on is on its S-curve disruption. And the thing that you're relying on, those itself is going in its own disruption. So like, how do you keep yourself sane?
So I remember I said that the sooner you can think about technology being disposable, the better off you're going to be. I like the phrase S-curve destruction. Right? That's exactly what's happening. And I was talking to one of my classes, and I said, I'm not concerned if you learn TensorFlow. I'm concerned that you learn how to learn TensorFlow. And the reason why I say that is because TensorFlow is hot today. It's great technology. Who knows 2 years from now if it's the right thing, right? Especially with this open source phenomenon going on. Technology is being released at very rapid paces. There's all kinds of phenomenal startups out there with great technology. Some of them built on open source that are going to accelerate adoption of new technologies. If you build your life on technology, you're building your life on shifting sands. Right? Don't build your house on sand, right? We learned that from the Bible. So we know better than that. So what do you build your life on? Build it on value. Build it on data and analytics, right? Build it on how I can leverage the insights in the data, insights about my customers' behaviors, my product performance, my operational excellence and such. Build it on that. Build it on the ability to to uncover insights. And today I'm using machine learning. How many different neural network technologies are there out there? Like 50, I guess somebody was telling me, right? And by the time we're off here doing this thing, there's probably 52, right? So there's all these new technologies coming out here. From a business perspective, I don't expect you to understand all 50 of those different ones. However, I expect my data scientist to, right? I don't expect my data scientist to understand the business. I got business people to do that. I expect my data scientist to look at the decision we're trying to make and say, I think these are the right models, algorithms, try against that. And if they aren't the right ones, I'm going to try some other ones, right? So when I find this, you talk about a team, right? The separation of skill. I don't expect my data scientists to understand the business. I expect them to understand data science. I expect my business people to understand the business. I don't expect them to understand data science. However, I want my business people to think like a data scientist, right? To be able to converse with data scientists in a language that's good for both parties. And I want my data scientists to think like a business executive. So they know the right kinds of conversations. What are KPIs, right? And things like that, so that you can have a common language. And if you have that common language, then the data scientists can do their work to try to drive and optimize those metrics. And the business person can work on the cultural issues to make sure we can actually operationalize them.
Interesting. And I think, and one area where sort of you can really help me. So as like you are actually representing two sides of one of the technologist's nightmare is about talent, the knowledge or knowledge gap of what technology is out there that businesses could exploit. Because I think as a technologist, it's your job to recruit the most cutting edge at the right time, so to cause disruption and give businesses an edge up to than their competitors. But on the other side, how you can sort of train your folks on those technologies, the assets out there. So you are teaching right now. So I am on advisory seat of a bunch of these universities about the data science program. My sort of constant rant to those guys is 2 years is hell of a long time to bake someone. It's like right now, if we can't get me any guy by the end of the weekend, probably they're obsolete anyways, right? So how do you sort of again relax yourself around this concept of like how, because technologies are suffering the most in this disrupt S-curve disruption or S-curve destruction, whatever you call it. Thoughts?
Wow. I'm trying to think how to decompose that question. There's a lot of passion in there, right. Which is good. I'm not a data scientist.
Right.
Really clear, right? In fact, I'm not a business person. I'm very fortunate that I'm neither fish nor fowl. I'm kind of sit in the middle. And when I look at that relationship, what I expect from the data scientist, who I think is truly the great uncovered assets in organizations. We talk about it, but we talk about how sexy they are, how important they are, but we still haven't figured out how to monetize them yet. I think it's important for the data scientist to learn concepts more than technology. Learning how to really, I said this before earlier, hypothesis development, really critical, right? You got to be able to understand and build the right kind of hypothesis. You got to be able to validate and vet it and prioritize the aspects of it, right? You got to be able to make certain that takes some interpersonal skills. Some data scientists may not have it, but I've got a few of my team are really good at doing that, right? Who can talk with the customer to make sure we have the right hypothesis. They know how to push around, and they've seen enough bad hypotheses to know what good ones look like, right? So I want people to understand concepts and approaches and approaches and methodology, and not be as concerned about the technology. But I actually want them to be concerned with the technology. I want them to constantly be looking at new things. Like one of the projects we were on recently was around doing predictive maintenance, and they were using a combination of deep learning first to take variables and turn them into images. And then machine learning. They use this combination of machine learning and deep learning at the same time to do things, kind of an ensemble kind of thing, right? And And I had never thought about that. And I was like, it was great. I said, how did you think about doing that? And they said, I don't know. I just tried it. And I thought, that's it.
Yeah.
Just try it. Right? You don't know, right? How do we make association rules more effective by adding, let's try adding deep learning to it to see if we can create more effective, more actionable, more accurate, association rules. Just try it.
Right.
And so I think that the data scientists in particular need to understand what these technologies do at a high level and be able to use them as appropriate, but don't be afraid to throw one away and try something different. And I think that may be what spooks the business people. And what I mean by that is that data science is about failure. We fail a lot more than we're successful. But every time you fail, we learn, right? And that's not something that, if you build a data warehouse and you fail with the architecture, you're looking for a new job, right? You just spent, 6-9 months and a couple $1 million to build something that doesn't work. So data science has to do things much more quickly, right? Little tricks that we learn, right? We don't build models on giant data sets. We take subsets of it and we start playing with it first, right? We do a lot of our envisioning with small, we do a lot of projects with 10 or 15 gigabytes of data to see what the relationships might be. And if we find some things, then we start bringing in more data, right? You learn this kind of different approaches and processes, and we don't know them all today. And in fact, the minute we think we know them, they change. So the data scientists have to be well read and stay on top of things and go to conferences, hang on Twitter, hang on LinkedIn. There's gobs of great stuff going on out there. So I'm not sure I answer your question, but don't focus on the technology as much as you really need to understand the process and approaches.
I think I love the element of that. It's about concepts, right? So it's learn. I think you nailed it pretty fair and square that technology is just the enabler for a concept, and you still have to be. And I think your example was fascinating about the guy talking about machine learning and deep learning and sort of creating this. I think you nailed it. I think that's exactly what I wanted to hear from my end. So the other thing, your perspective on is, what is the ingredient of some of your best hires? Like what are, like, if you can share that
Sure.
would be really helpful as a technologist.
So my absolute best data scientists, the two skills that I see more than anything else, there's probably more, but these two, I talked about humility and collaboration, right? That they're willing to, all ideas are worthy of consideration, so that if you get ideas from other people and you're willing to try things. You got to become really good. Data scientists need to learn how to try things really fast. If I have to stand up a big environment, bring a bunch of data, and it takes me 5 days to try something, then I'm not going to do much trial and error, right? I need to be able to do things in hours. Bring in a small data set, screen scrape something, drop it in, build a flat file, a schema of a flat file, and then do some playing with it, see if there's anything in that data, right? So the discovery process has to be very, very quick. And so you do need to have an environment that supports that. Because if I have that, then I can fail fast. I can try different crazy ideas. I can get people to share. So humility and collaboration are really key. Then the third thing is you can't be afraid to fail. You just can't, right? And that's something that we have sort of ostracized as we got older. Think about how you learned to ride a bike. Did you hop in a bike and take off? No, we fell, we ran into trees, we ran into bushes. How did we learn to be who play golf, right? How did you learn to play golf? Well, you hit the ball over the course and you slice and hook, and I still do that. So, right, we failed a lot, and it was through failure that we became better. All of a sudden, you get in the business world, and failure becomes bad. No. Failure is a process of learning. And so I want data scientists who aren't afraid to fail, but fail and learn from the failures. Not just to fail, but I'm going to try this. This is what I believe is going to happen. I do my test. This happens. What did I learn from that? Right? And then capture that learning, share it with a team, make everybody smarter. It's a team sport. You said it very well. It's a team sport. If somebody is doing something here and they learn some great idea, let's try it over here. Let's fail. I mean, it's all about creating that really sense of team and getting them excited about the realm of what's possible. That's, by the way, that's probably one of the most challenging things when you start talking to executives is they just don't know what's possible. They don't know that you can do this kind of crazy stuff and you can bring up photos and you can tell you what's a Chihuahua puppy and what's a blueberry muffin, because you don't want to eat a Chihuahua puppy by accident. So and they don't have any idea that, wow, you can differentiate between those kind of. So part of what I think is really important from a data science team perspective is almost doing these contests, these lunch and learns, where they're sharing with the executives the kind of things that they can do. Because you're trying to get the business executives to start thinking about, wow, I didn't know you could do that. Now, and they can start envisioning how they might do that, how they might use that to flag parts that are going to fail, or to flag a patient in a hospital who is likely to get a staph infection. So there is this constant world of trying to make people aware, to help them to envision that you're sharing these things back and forth. So the business people, data scientists have to, and this is, by the way, this is what I think a chief data officer or a chief analytics officer, that's one of their key responsibilities, is a continuous education of my business executives about what I can do today that I couldn't even do 4 months ago. So
fascinating. Yes, I think that's beautiful. So we are almost at the tail end of the conversation. So I thank you so much for being very candid and helping us understand the mindset of a technologist in a data-driven world. So let's talk about you for a minute. So what are your ingredients to success? Like, what are some of the things that you cherish really helped you be what you are today? If you can walk us through that.
Sure. I'm very lucky in the sense I have some marvelous friends who are very patient with me. My chief data scientist who I work with, his name is Wei Lin. Wei is the most humble, most generous, most patient person I know, and is always willing. He'll do something and I'll take a look at it and I'll say, how did you do that? I don't understand. And he'll go through and explain it. And I'll go, I don't get it. I'll go through and explain it, right? So I'm very fortunate that I've got a lot of friends, and I've met a lot of people through, Twitter has turned out to be an amazing source of all kinds of great stuff. By the way, I don't go to Facebook anymore. Facebook is full of politics and fake news. And so it's weird that Twitter's not, but I find that there's people there, and I've run into many, many people who are willing to share their experiences. So I'm very fortunate that I'm constantly looking for new ideas. I love it when people send me an idea and I test it, and they have the patience to walk me through an idea until I learn it, or maybe I'm hopeless. So I think that it's the friends you surround yourself with, right, that really dictate a lot about what you are. They always say that you are the sum of the decisions you've made in your life. If you want to figure out who you are, you look at the decisions you've made in your life, and that defines who you are. I think that also is true with your friends. You define yourself by the friends you hang with, and I'm kind of picky about my friends. I'm not friends with everybody, but somebody who's really willing to spend and help me to understand. And by the way, hopefully I can get back to them as well. I mean, we can share ideas, and as a process, we become better. The last point here. This is why I teach. The reason I teach, a couple of reasons. One, in order to teach something to students, you need to be able to understand and simplify. Simplifying is hard, right? I can write something that's really complicated, but getting an explanation down to 12 or 15 words takes a lot of work. I like that challenge. Number two, I love the fact that the students don't know what they can't do. And so they'll raise their hand and say, Professor Schmarzo, I don't get it. Right? It's kind of like Tom Hanks in the movie Big. I don't get it, right?
Right.
And you stop me and say, well, it's the way we've always done it. Oops, wait, that's the wrong answer, right? Why are we doing it that way? And you stop and you think, right? Maybe we shouldn't do it that way. So I find that teaching is by far the best part of what I do. And I got a class tonight. I can't wait to get into it, because I know we're gonna try things, we're gonna do things, we're gonna fail, but we're gonna learn together.
Nice. No, it's fascinating. So one more thing I ask everyone is their favorite read. So besides Big Data MBA, like what is, do you have a favorite read that you want to share with our audience?
A favorite what?
Favorite read.
Oh, favorite read.
Yes.
Well, the book that I recommend for all of my students that they read, other than mine, of course, is I have them read the book Moneyball. I thought the book Moneyball was the cultural introduction of the concepts of data science to a broader audience. that the book did a really nice job, maybe not as direct as as possible, but they introduced a lot of different concepts about data science. For example, out of the book, you get this definition of data science. What is data science? Data science is about identifying those variables and metrics that might be better predictors of performance. Period. That's all it is, right? People can understand that, right? They understand I'm looking for things that make somebody a better batter, somebody a better pitcher, somebody a better fielder, right? They get it. They get it. So I think that book was my favorite read. I think it was, it really helped us to take some very complex, overly complex, confusing concepts and make them very simple.
Interesting. No, I think thank you for sharing that. I do appreciate that. And and by the way, Bill, thank you so much. I think I'm really energized with your passion, and this podcast is like full of energy right now. So it's hard to see it go. It's almost hurting. So why as a before we part ways, as a closing remark, like, do you have any closing remark for our listeners that you want to share?
Yeah. The only bit of advice I would give to you is don't be afraid to fail. We talked about that, and that might require you to unlearn stuff. So be ready to jettison things that you've held as gospel and learn new things. I think if you can do that, right? I'm not trying to teach you TensorFlow. I'm trying to teach you how to. No, I'm not trying to have you learn TensorFlow. I want you to learn how to learn TensorFlow, right? So learn the process, learn the concepts. The technologies are going to change, but if you understand the concepts and the approach, we're going to be very successful going in the future.
I think that's couldn't have said any better. So with that, thank you so much, Bill. And again, you're always welcome on the show. And thank you so much for being amazingly candid and helping us understand the landscape. We have covered probably a mile in less than a feet. So it's amazing. This is one of those sessions that I really thrive to do, these podcasts, I think, and I do appreciate you. And with that, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It was great. I'm a very fortunate person. I get exposed to lots of opportunities, and I feel fortunate I can share them. So thanks for giving me a platform upon which I could pontificate.
Awesome. So thank you so much.
I thought I was sick of home, but actually I was homesick. Never really knew that I would have to grow up so quick. I'm so uncomfortable, don't know anybody here. Just a couple dudes that I met once, that's it. And I go into the booth feeling nervous. Got butterflies in my stomach like I'm so worthless. Is the mic on? I don't know how to work this. Inside I'm breaking down, I hope I'm not up on a